All right. Well, welcome to UFC 312. We're going to go through the entire card from top to bottom. Now, I don't normally do a full card, but if it's a very good card, I'm going to do it. This is a hardcore fans delight. So let's start from the top to bottom, but let's start from the very bottom all the way to the main event. So let's get this cracking. All right. So the first fight of the evening, we got Tumendemberel taking on Park. Now, look, Park has knockouts. He's undefeated. Very similar to Doho Choi, but very technical with a counter shot. I see him winning this fight. Even though Tumendemberel has the longer reach, he has a little bit less durable, very wild in the way that he swings. Sort of like a real slugger type of fighter. By the way, this fight is taking place in Sydney, Australia. By the way, a very beautiful part of the world. Very beautiful bay, water, urban land, everything that they got going on. And this is the fight location that we got going on for this weekend. Great beaches and all of that. So it's going to be live right here this weekend. As I just gave you right now, my first prediction of the fight. I'm going to go with Park by knockout, probably somewhere in the first or the second round. So moving back from Sydney, Australia, obviously this is going to be local time, Saturday, February 9th on a Sunday during their time. So just keep that in mind, whereas it's going to be a Saturday in the United States. So there it is, the main event right there, all the way down. We're going to go all the way from top to bottom, taking a look at every single one of these cards, taking every single one of these fights, and starting from the prelims all the way to the main cards and all the way to the co-main and main event. So the next fight we got coming up, we got Quillan taking on Anshul Jubli. Now, Jubli was the first Indian to have made it into UFC, right? Lost to Mike Bretter. Maybe just a UFC jitters had something to do with it. He's got great wrestling. Now, it says here on Quillan's record, he's 1-0. I'm going to assume that's kind of faulty because you never know what kind of records these guys have in the particular region of the world that they live at. So I looked it up. His record is actually 9-2. Now, he's got a good pace, decent grappler, but I'm going to say that Jubli is the experienced guy, but this is one of those situations where experience doesn't really override overall skill, and I think Quillan is going to have the advantage over Jubli here. Jubilee's been on a losing streak. I mean, he's had one loss coming into the UFC, obviously, but we'll see if he stays on his level. Now, if Quinlan's going to win, I'm going to probably have to go by a decision. I don't know if I can see him finishing Jubli, especially if Jubli decides to fight back with some wrestling. So next fight coming up, we got Jonathan Micallef taking on Kevin Josie. Now, Kevin Josie's battle-tested, few UFC wins. I believe he fights a lot like Izzy, the way that he fights, if you notice, right? He's fought Brian Battle. So he's got some good striking in him from what I've seen out of the fight with Brian Battle. Now, John Metcalf, very inexperienced. This is obviously his UFC debut out of Australia. Just like what I mentioned earlier with Jubli, he's probably going to experience some form of UFC octagon jitters. So I'm going to go with Kevin Josie on this one. Next fight coming up, we got Rongzhu taking on Cody Steele. Okay, Cody Steele is the guy on the... Who is Cody Steele here? Hold on. I believe... Yeah, Cody Steele is the gentleman on the left, and yes, Rongzhu is the guy on the right. Okay, so more likely a first round KO for Cody Steele. I mean, Rongzhu is one of these road to UFC guys, very inexperienced, just somebody that they were trying to bring in here. Look, this is a fight for Cody Steele to win. Now, here's the most interesting fight of the entire card that I really wanted to get to, right? For the first time ever, you got two UFC debutants with two former champions, and not only that, two former champions that clashed with each other. Okay? You got Colby, Thicknesse, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but for let's just say yes, his name goes with Colby Thicknesse. He trains with Volkanovski. Now, Aleksandre Topuria, guess who he trains with? You know the last name, none other than the 145 champ. It's his brother. I see him with a first round KO in this. He's fought a lot of can crushers, fought people with losing record. He's said to have been better than his brother when it comes to the boxing, right? And they both have great boxing, but they said that he's even better in MMA. Now, Kody has faced better competition, has weathered storms, obviously trained with Volk, well-rounded, has also trained with the likes of Craig Jones. So you got to wonder what kind of athleticism, what kind of grappling he's going to display here, and what kind of grappling he's going to offer to the likes of somebody like Aleksandre. I think Aleksandre is one of these people where even if he loses this fight, which I don't see him losing, and I'm going to tell you, right? Even if any of these guys lose this fight, they still have an opportunity to come back. So keep that in mind. There is still an opportunity for these guys to come back. But I think that this is going to be Topuria's night. And I just think that he's the better fighter. He's got the better team. They've even proved it with a fight between Volkanovski and Topuria. Yeah, I'm going to go with Topuria once again on this one. Now, the next fight coming up, fight number 6, we got Wang Cong taking on Bruna Silva. Now, Bruna Silva is a bit of a juggernaut compared to Cong, right? Now, Cong has, how do I say this, a very positive attitude in the way that she uses the boogeyman role, wears it in the face paint, okay, and has one of these women Joker vibes. By the way, has a good 1-2 punch, but I think Bruna Silva is going to be a lot more well-rounded, a lot more experienced, and just like most women's fights, I think that this is going to a decision for Bruna Silva. Next fight coming up, we got Viacheslav taking on Tom Nolan. Okay, so Viacheslav is a guy on the right, Tom Nolan is a guy on the left. Viacheslav was dominated by Chase Hooper, but we all see what kind of good fighter Chase Hooper is. Now, look, not much of a grappler, but again, well-rounded compared to Tom Nolan, right? And here's the thing about Tom Nolan and why I'm going to go with Viacheslav in this one. I'm going to Viacheslav because there's a serious weight cut issue that Tom Nolan has to face. Very brutal. By the way, brutally got KO'd in his UFC debut. Has to maintain wrestling here in order to sort of get him back into the cage. I don't know, man. I think Viacheslav is going to have the better adjustment in this one, right? I see him edging out a decision on this one. And look, Tom Nolan is good, but man, listen, it's just a serious weight cut issue that he has going on, and I can sort of picture him having some serious problems as the fight goes on, right? And again, it's sort of an argument for a lot of people to move up a weight class. So now, moving on to the card, we got Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. Now, being got his shoulders separated by Marscal, right? Jack outstruck Marscal, but had a good output on that fight. And in this fight, I think there's going to be a home field advantage, right? Good kicking game, good gas tank, which I think he's going to win by a decision based on that. Gabriel Santos is coming off of a win. Yeah, I just think the gas tank for Jack Jenkins is going to be too much. So I'm going to go with Jack Jenkins on this one. Next fight coming up. Very exciting fight, right? Jake Matthews. Did you guys know Jake Matthews has been in the UFC for literally 11 years of his whole entire career? If you can really put that in perspective, right? Very experienced fighter at a young age, 31 years old, came into the UFC when he was 19, had almost a 50-50 UFC record, had up and downs, experienced decent grappling. Okay, wins a lot with grappling, good counter, 73-inch reach, can outbox him on the back foot and is very slick. Now, Francisco Prado, a little less well-rounded, less experienced than Jake Matthews, likes to march forward and relies a lot on his chin, which I think if Jake Matthews decides to fight this very methodically, I think he's going to win by a decision on this one, edge this one out. I think the chin of Francisco is going to be too hard to put away. I think that there's going to be few exchanges or opportunities that Jake Matthews is going to see as a submission here. And yeah, I think that's where ultimately this fight is going to go by a decision. So next fight coming up, how about this? We got, who do we have here? Jimmy Crute. We got Jimmy Crute. Okay, taking on Rodolfo Bellato. Okay. I'm going to go with Bellato on this one. Will create a lot of highlight moments in this fight, okay? He's got a good clinch, great dirty boxing. He's going to be very dangerous in a clinch, Rodolfo. Okay, he turned the tide and KO'd Ihor, if you remember, right? Real Beast had a great comeback against Ihor, if you remember that fight. So he's very durable. So he's going to be in a very exciting fight. Now, as for Jimmy Crute, he's a great grappler. Okay, he's KO'd Alonzo Menefield coming off of a long layoff. Okay, I think that his chin is healed after that. And here's the problem, right? I think maybe he's going to use the grappling to sort of ease his way into this fight. I don't think he's going to try to get into a firefight in any kind of way, but man, Rodolfo is all up and ready for the firefight. And I think that's where he really needs to take this to somebody like James Crute, who's been recovering and just coming back from a serious injury and having his chin healed after he had gotten, KO'd and coming off of a layoff, I suppose. But I don't think that is going to help him in any kind of way. I think the rhythm is going to be on the side of Rodolfo. So I'm going to go with Rodolfo with probably a KO in this fight at some point, going at a back and forth. So next fight coming up. Now, how about this? This is the debut of Tallison Teixeira. Not much we know about him, but look, Justin Tafa is very explosive, which will lead to an early KO finish in the first round. That's just how this fight is going to go. Now, I don't know why a UFC debutant like this is way up in the pay-per-view, but hey, by the end of the day, it is a hardcore fans fight. There's great fights in this card, competitive fights. This just isn't one of them. And Justin Tafa is going to get this one done real quick. Now, going into the co-main event of the evening. Okay, so we got the co-main of the evening, okay? I'm going to believe that this is a 50-50 fight. I think this is going to go to a decision. But who is it going to go to? We're going to find out in just a second, okay? Now, they say that Tatiana Suarez is the female Khabib, sort of a hype job, perhaps, by a lot of people. They say that she barely fights because of a lot of these injuries that she had going on. Now, she had cancer therapy treatment that she had to go through, has been very inactive, but at the same time is very fresh, not as damaged as Weili Zhang. So you can kind of see why this is a 50-50 fight. Now, look, Zhang is very fast, very explosive, very skilled, tremendous in the skill gap versus other fighters. Maybe except with this one, maybe her Achilles heel is wrestling, but very active, okay? And the damage that she can cause hits very hard. Tatiana Suarez really needs to take this to the ground and take her there, keep her there, and don't let her up, at least up until she finishes her in some kind of way. But that's the only way that I see her winning this. As for Zhang, man, compared to the other females, she's very hard hitting, and it's going to be very difficult to deal with that. It's a very tough fight to score, very tough fight to decide. But I'm going to go out of the limb, and I'm going to give Tatiana Suarez a benefit of the doubt as the new undisputed women's 125 champion. I believe this is 135 or 125, I believe. Okay. Yeah, I think that she's going to take this one by decision. So, moving on to the main event of the evening. Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis. Now, we've seen this fight already. Strickland, from the first fight, good takedown defense. Always good takedown defense. No one can hold him down. Low output, very reserved. And by the way, this is going to be a very similar fight in the first. I think Drickus is going to win by a decision. He's finished Adesanya. The wrestling is great. It will be a factor. The pressure style and mixing it up. It's going to be a razor close fight. And not only that, Drickus and his team, they game plan to perfection. Drickus will win due to conditioning. Okay, have you seen the type of training modules that Drickus has going on? I mean, it is absolutely unconventional and borderline illegal, but it's South Africa. They come from a very, very rough place, very rough part of the world. And as a result of that, that training is going to sort of show. Strickland reflects a lot in his in the type of training and the type of environment that he belongs in as well. You want to know why? Check this out. There's a lot of great gyms in the United States, a lot of great gyms in Los Angeles, a lot of great gyms in Vegas. Sean trains in all of them, and he doesn't mix around doing drills, doesn't just lay around with guys rolling around or doing whatever, or just shadow boxing or hitting the bag. No, he goes straight into the sparring, and I think that helps going into fights. You see how accurate he is. That has something to do with that. But I think the game planner and the one with the strategy in this whole entire card, in this whole entire fight, well, yeah, the whole entire card is Drickus du Plessis. They just plan fights down to the fullest. And I see that with his team. I see that with anybody that's with him, that's with his camp. And I see that with all of his fights and all of his preparation. Now, look, the criticism that Drickus du Plessis sort of gets a lot is that he is sort of, how do I say this, very sloppy in the way that he approaches the fight. But guess what? I think that sloppiness comes from somewhere. And I've mentioned this before. You know what it is? The sloppiness comes from the fact that he trains in very extreme conditions. So if you're trying to throw a straight punch or you're trying to throw a kick and it's supposed to look technical and beautiful, the way that they throw it in Thailand, the way that they throw it in the Taekwondo scene in Korea and Japan, and the reason why it doesn't look anything like that, the reason why he doesn't look like Anthony Pettis throwing these kicks is because of the way that he trains. He trains to hurt you. He trains not to look pretty. And I think that's what ultimately is what makes him very successful, very dangerous, and very awkward at the same time. But I think the wrestling is going to be a factor in this fight, just like it was in the first fight between them. And as a result, I think Drickus du Plessis is going to come out as the winner on this one. So that is all that I have for this one, guys. Don't forget to check out Fight Week. It's going to be Sunday, February 9th for everybody in that part of the world. But out here, it's going to be Saturday, right here on UFC 312 in California, in the USA, in the West Coast, and around the world. From Sydney, Australia to everyone and beyond, we're going to be there watching. So for everybody out there, don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to tap in for UFC 312 live stream right here on this channel, Kyrie Abu El Kir MMA. I will see you in the next one. I will see you at the fights. And that is all that I have for this one. Inshallah.